The Outer Worlds 2 did the impossible and they got me off the grind of Abiotic Factor. Honestly, I didn't expect to be jumping off that game anytime soon, but here we are. Thanks to Xbox, I was given the opportunity to play The Outer Worlds 2, and I will just say this. Man, I love Obsidian games and their RPGs. And while I thought The Outer Worlds 1 was a solid game, I did feel like there was something missing. It had some depth to it, but in terms of the gameplay systems, like there really wasn't all that much depth. It almost felt like it was a bit shallow in some areas, like some of the gameplay systems and the mission structure. But in terms of like the character development and like the choices you could make in The Outer Worlds, that was really solid. But it's because of that, I always considered The Outer Worlds to be more of an RPG light rather than a fully fledged RPG. And I also have that same sentiment for Avowed, but The Outer Worlds 2 on the other hand feels way different. And from my playtime, it certainly seems like they're really focusing on the depth of this game, which I really appreciate. This game has depth from the character creation system to the perks, the traits, the skills, the reputation system, and the way you approach the various missions in this game. Obviously, there wasn't many that I played, but that was due to this being a shorter demo. So now I'd like to take the time and really dive deep into The Outer Worlds 2 from this demo and talk about as many systems as I possibly can in this video. So if you're excited for The Outer Worlds 2 and you really want to get prepped, everything from the character creation to the skills to the traits and as many other things that I'm able to talk about and fit into this video. So yeah, let's jump in. Okay, let's first talk about the character customization in this game. We have the first tab that says appearance, where you can adjust the different body types. There's multiple different presets. There's also various prosthetics you can have. There's 4 specifically. In terms of the face, there's 23 different head options. There's 18 different skin tones, there's moles, there's other features and complexion, there's age wrinkles, there's eye colors, 28 different eye colors, there's dark circle size, there's eyebrow slider, nose, and pretty much everything you would expect to be with a head and face customizer. Now, in terms of the hair, there's 63 different hair variety. There's 42 different hair colors. In terms of facial hair, there's only 23 options. I was a little bit disappointed with the facial hair options, but all of this stuff can be fixed with modding regardless. Now, in terms of cosmetic, you can have the ability to add makeup to yourself. There's lipstick and dirt options and piercings and tattoos. Now, in terms of the backgrounds, there are 6 different backgrounds. You have ex-convict, there's gambler, there's lawbringer, there's professor, and then there's renegade, and then rustabout, which these are pretty straightforward. What I really appreciate is whenever you select a background, like whatever background you choose to play as, like the next scene, they immediately reference your character background. Now, in terms of the traits, there's multiple different traits. There's the positive traits, which the first one is brawny, and then we have brilliant, we have heroic, innovative, lucky, nimble, resilient, suave, and witty. So for my first character, I decided to go with the lucky trait, and then I clicked on the brawny trait, and then once I did that, it showcased the various negative traits that you have to select for this specific build. Now, you can try to get away from the negative traits. It's actually pretty easy to do. But yeah, if you select brawny, then you have to have a negative trait that's, for instance, abrasive, dumb, or sickly. So from there, you can select abrasive, and then that immediately prompts the ability to select different skills. You have to select 2 skills, which those skills are engineering, explosive, guns, hacking, leadership, lockpick, melee, medical, observation, science, sneak, and then speech. So yeah, overall, I'd say this. I wasn't like super impressed with the character customization. It's not like, you know, Dragon's Dogma 2 or a game that has like a really cracked character customizer, but it's solid. Like, it was an improvement on Outer Worlds 1, but it's nothing like too crazy to glaze. Regardless though, I'm glad that they made improvements to it. And from my time with the demo, they did stick the landing in terms of like making your background actually relevant. So let's just hope that the main game does that as well. So now let's jump into the various different perks that Outer Worlds 2 has. Right now in this game, there are 92 different perks. Everything from Bullet Shield to Serendipitous Slayer to Shiny New Toy, Inspiring Commander, Busybodies, and just so many different perks that will all change up the game. And what I like about the perks is as you upgrade your skills, like your guns, your melee, your sneak, the more you upgrade your skills, the more perks it will also unlock, which makes it a pretty straightforward system. There's really no notes that I have in terms of the perks. Like, once I dive more into the game and like start playing it and actually start upgrading my various skills and, you know, getting different perks unlocked, then I'll give you guys a better idea. Like, once the main game comes out, then I will have a much better idea. Now in this game, there's also a reputation tab. I'm not really going to show this part, but the reputation tab is kind of what you would expect it to be, with a slider that goes, you know, left and right. which shows the low reputation or high reputation. It's pretty self-explanatory. I'm sure that if you have like, you know, negative reputation for some people, then that will have like either negative or positive consequences. So next up, let's talk about the inventory system. It's pretty straightforward. You've got the ability to attach a helmet. You've got the ability to add armor. There's weapon slot 1, weapon slot 2, and then 3 and 4. There's also various different filters that you can do, sorting by name, value, armor type. And then at the very top, you can actually filter by weapons, armor, you know, helmets, and just other various things like the throwable items and food and drinks. Also, sorry if you guys hear cicadas. It's, you know, it's a disaster in the Midwest. Yeah, continuing on, there's the map in this game, which has the local and, you know, regional map. Nothing too crazy. And then there's the journal that has quests, the codex, and then a section that says wireless, which that is a station similar to, you know, Fallout games. You're actually able to tune into a station and listen to the tunes, which is pretty awesome. Okay, so now jumping into the moment-to-moment gameplay, it's also pretty straightforward. You've got your normal sprint. You can have it toggle or not toggle. If like you want to hold it or toggle it, you can do that. There's aiming. And then there's something called the food and drink system, which if you actually find food in the game, it's actually better to eat the food to heal yourself than it is to use like your inhaler that, you know, we would spam in the first game. Well, if you spam the inhaler, then you actually have a toxicity level. The more you spam it, the more you become toxic. And then once you actually become toxic, you have negative afflictions, which this is called a drug crash, where they say that the overuse of the medical inhaler can cause you to experience a drug crash. While crashing, the inhaler is disabled, preventing you from healing further. And they say to prevent crashes, ensure you're watching your toxicity closely. Investing in the medical skill can also increase the amount of toxicity you can accrue before a crash occurs. So diving further into the moment-to-moment gameplay, there is a thing called the tactical time dilation gadget, which that essentially just slows down time. It's almost like VATS in Fallout 4, where like you could still shoot your gun and move around. All it really is like slow-mo. It's almost like Deadeye as well, but you still have to be able to aim and shoot. Now, there's also the ability to have throwables. There's multiple different throwables in this game. Again, this was just a demo. It wasn't super in-depth. They weren't going to give us like all of the guns to use. I think the main thing that they wanted to showcase with this demo was the actual depth of the gameplay. It seemed like every decision you made or like skill check you had to get through, or even like narrative options had an effect to the gameplay itself, which is a big positive. Now, another thing that I want to talk about is the third person to first person gameplay. And I'll say this, like Outer Worlds should be played in first person. If you like third person games, fine. But like the third person gameplay in this is not that great. It just looked pretty awkward. I will not be playing this game in third person, although I do appreciate that there's an idle camera that is in third person. But yeah, the third person gameplay, not too great, at least from what I've played. Like, I don't really know if there's really going to be a reason for me to play outside of first person. Maybe there's certain missions or like melee weapons that are really good in third person. I doubt it. But regardless, I do think it's a good thing that players have the choice to play how they want. So now let's talk about the overall graphics and the world that I've played. Like, dude, this mission looks incredible. Like, in terms of a visual standpoint, this is Obsidian at its finest. Like, in terms of a visual standpoint, the skybox and everything, like, it just gets you so immersed in the world that the team absolutely crushed it. So no notes on that. Now, with the game looking visually stunning, how does it perform? Well, playing the game in 4K, I didn't really notice any like noticeable FPS drops or anything like that. One thing that I will say is regardless of what DLSS setting, you get noticeable input lag, and that's with frame generation on and off. It almost seems like there's mouse smoothing on, which is not good. It doesn't feel like a raw input, but it could be a configuration that I have messed up. In terms of like the actual graphical options and, you know, various settings you have the ability to change, there is a lot of depth to that. There's, you know, it's what you would expect in an Obsidian game and just a AAA game for that matter. So yeah, there's plenty of options. But yeah, the game at a solid frame rate, looks visually stunning, but I'll leave all the performance and stuff like that to people that know what they're talking about, like Digital Foundry. I'm not going to even begin to tell you how the game performs. That it would just be so disingenuous. Now, I can't talk about much of the story, but what I will say is, man, am I excited to dive into the Outer Worlds 2 once it launches. I can already kind of tell where they're going with this story, and I can't wait to dive in. But yeah, if you guys have any questions about the Outer Worlds 2, I will do my best to try to answer them in the comment section. I'm actually actively playing the build as well, like right now. So yeah, ask as many questions as you can before this build becomes unavailable. Hit the like button if you enjoyed this video, subscribe with your notifications turned on so you're not missing out on any future gaming news and updates and previews like this one. And until next time, this has been Wes, and I will talk to you guys in the next video.